Canada and the United States, long-standing allies and trade partners, now find themselves at the brink of a major economic standoff. President Trump's recent decision to postpone a 25% tariff on Canadian imports by 1 month, shifting the implementation date to April 2nd, has done little to ease tensions. While this delay offers a short window for negotiations, Canada remains firm in its resolve to protect its economic interest. Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc has delayed Canada's next wave of retaliatory tariffs, valued at $125 billion, until April 7th, reinforcing that Canada will not back down. The initial $30 billion in counter-tariffs against U.S. goods was a warning shot, signaling that rash trade barriers would not go unchallenged. One of the most distinct countermeasures comes from British Columbia, BC, which has proposed tolls on commercial vehicles traveling to Alaska. Premier David Eby insists this move is about leverage, aiming to pressure Washington and Alaska into recognizing the economic consequences of these tariffs. Additionally, BC is ensuring that low-carbon fuel additives must be produced in Canada, aligning environmental goals with trade strategy. This tariff dispute disrupts industries across Canada. Ontario manufacturers seek alternative markets, Quebec logistics firms explore non-U.S. suppliers, and BC businesses brace for economic fallout. The province has already removed American liquor from public store shelves if sourced from states supporting trade threats, a targeted boycott designed to increase economic pressure. Across the country, Canadian agencies are prioritizing domestic goods and services, redirecting capital away from U.S. suppliers. Ottawa has reinforced its stance by imposing tariffs on $155 billion worth of American goods. Though painful, these countermeasures are seen as necessary leverage. Canada is also fast-tracking infrastructure projects to strengthen its internal market and reduce reliance on U.S. trade. BC's newly formed Trade and Economic Security Task Force, including business leaders and Indigenous representatives, is drafting strategies to mitigate tariff-related disruptions. Agricultural leaders aware of potential supply chain issues are working to protect Canada's food production and prevent price surges. Softwood lumber, a long-standing trade issue, remains a central concern. BC defends its timber interests while American buyers continue to rely on Canadian wood. To coordinate responses, the province has established a cabinet committee overseeing trade-related measures, ensuring a cohesive economic defense strategy. At the heart of this dispute is Canada's geographical role in connecting Alaska to the lower 48 states. The Alaska Highway, built during World War II, runs largely through Canadian territory, making Canada indispensable for freight, tourism, and energy transit. Flight paths and pipelines also depend on Canadian cooperation. BC's proposed tolls on Alaska-bound trucks could severely complicate supply routes, serving as a potent bargaining tool. Other provinces are taking similar action. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston doubled tolls for U.S. vehicles on the Cobequid Pass and banned American companies from provincial contracts. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has vowed retaliatory measures while urging a focus on pipelines and liquefied natural gas projects to strengthen Canada's energy independence. Manitoba, Newfoundland, and Labrador and others have removed U.S. products from liquor store shelves and frozen contracts with American suppliers. This collective push to reduce reliance on the U.S. marks a turning point in Canada's trade strategy. Programs are helping businesses reorient exports toward Europe, Asia, and Latin America, capitalizing on trade agreements like CETA and the CPTPP. As Canadian retailers shift toward international suppliers, the economic landscape is beginning to evolve. Historical precedents highlight the risks of prolonged trade conflicts. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930 worsened the Great Depression, while Nixon's 1971 import surcharge disrupted global trade. More recently, Trump's 2018 steel and aluminum tariffs triggered Canadian countermeasures, illustrating the necessity of a firm stance. Canada argues that these new tariffs violate USMCA principles and may challenge them through the WTO, though legal battles could take years. The White House's justification for these tariffs, linking Canada to the fentanyl crisis, has been met with skepticism. Canada views this as an overreach of the National Security Clause and has made it clear that legal and economic retaliation will continue unless the U.S. backs down. As tensions escalate, the impact on everyday Canadians is becoming evident. Grocery costs, home renovation prices, and consumer goods availability could be affected if American imports become prohibitively expensive. Similarly, U.S. consumers may face higher costs for Canadian products like lumber, aluminum, and agricultural goods. Small businesses in border towns are particularly vulnerable, as reduced cross-border shopping and travel could hurt local economies. Farmers, manufacturers, and retailers on both sides of the border are lobbying for a resolution, as prolonged tariffs threaten supply chains and job security. Despite the uncertainty, Canada remains optimistic that a resolution will be found. Past trade disputes have ultimately ended through negotiation, and economic pragmatism may prevail. However, this dispute has accelerated Canada's push for diversification, reinforcing the need for long-term resilience against U.S. policy shifts. As provinces and the federal government stand united, Canada's message is clear. While diplomacy is preferred, economic sovereignty will be defended. By prioritizing domestic businesses and expanding global trade partnerships, Canada is positioning itself for a future where it is less dependent on its largest trading partner. In the end, this tariff battle may push Canada toward greater economic independence and self-reliance, reshaping its trade relationships for years to come. In parallel, some Canadian industries are seeking legal recourse in American courts, though success can be limited. Historically, U.S. courts grant extensive latitude to presidential powers where trade restrictions declared under national emergency are concerned. Still, Canada's ability to demonstrate resilience and unity could shape future trade dynamics. Consumers worldwide may eventually benefit from this expanded marketplace. Canadians, for instance, could see a greater variety of global products, even if short-term adjustments lead to temporary price fluctuations. Entrepreneurs are testing new markets, forging networks, and investing in product development for foreign consumers. Retailers in major Canadian cities already display more goods sourced from Europe and Asia than in previous years. The reconfiguration is subtle but grows more visible with each round of trade threats from Washington. Some experts call these changes inevitable. Globalization has expanded options, and the pandemic already highlighted supply chain fragility. A contentious U.S.-Canada trade environment only catalyzes what might have happened more gradually otherwise. Amid the complexity, one fact remains. Canada and the U.S. share one of the world's largest trading partnerships. Their economies have interlinked supply chains, integrated industries, and vibrant cross-border ties that neither side can easily unravel. With so many American states exporting to Canada, domestic politics in the U.S. might also shift. Stakeholders in farming or manufacturing might pressure Washington to reconsider these tariffs if they stand to lose a reliable Canadian customer base. The tension cannot be dismissed as purely political theater. Real livelihoods from a fisherman in Nova Scotia to a factory worker in Detroit hang in the balance. A trade war of this magnitude reverberates through local communities on both sides. There is still cautious optimism. Past trade disputes have typically ended through negotiation. Shared history and common interests often prevail, pushing governments to find workable solutions before irreparable harm is done. However, until that day arrives, Canada stands resolute. The White House's sweeping tariffs have prompted a swift, united response. Provinces and the federal government are in lockstep, reminding the world that while peace is preferred, Canada is prepared to defend its economic sovereignty.